My name is Kora Thomas, and I'm 28 years old. 6 years ago, I signed military papers instead of college applications, not because I wanted to serve, but because my parents gave my $200,000 share of the college fund entirely to my younger sister. "You'll figure it out," they said. "You always do." That one sentence, casual, dismissive, sent me to boot camp while Madison moved into a private university dorm. I spent 6 years serving my country to earn what she got handed on a silver platter. I worked night shifts, paid off student loans dollar by dollar, and built a life without their help. Meanwhile, they proudly posted about Madison's achievements, never mentioning me. But at her MBA graduation party, in front of 150 guests, my 82-year-old grandmother stood up and said 5 words that changed everything. "I'm pressing charges against you." Before I tell you what happened next, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely connect with this story, and drop a comment with where you're watching from and your local time. I read every single one. Here's how a $400,000 betrayal unraveled in the most public way possible. The favoritism didn't start with the college fund. It started when I was 12 and Madison was 9. I remember bringing home my report card, straight A's as usual. My mom glanced at it while folding laundry. "Good job. We knew you could do it." That was it. No celebration, no acknowledgement beyond those 7 words. The next week, Madison got a B+ in math. My parents took her to her favorite restaurant and spent the entire dinner praising her effort. "We're so proud of you for working hard," my dad said, ruffling her hair. I sat there pushing pasta around my plate, confused. What had I done wrong? By the time I turned 16, I'd figured out the pattern. Being capable meant being invisible. Madison struggled with homework, so my parents hired tutors. I taught myself. Madison needed help with college applications, so they paid a consultant. I researched scholarships alone at the library. On my 16th birthday, my parents sat me down for the talk. Not about driving privileges, about responsibility and the importance of saving money. Madison got a car for her 16th birthday 2 years later. A used Honda, but still. "Madison needs more support," my mom explained once, when I asked why the rules felt different. "You're so mature for your age. You understand, right?" I did understand. I understood that needing help got you help and being strong got you forgotten. My Aunt Helen noticed. She was my dad's older sister, and she didn't hide her opinions. "Richard, you're taking advantage of Cora's independence," she told him once at Thanksgiving. "That girl is drowning, and you can't even see it because she's too proud to ask for a life raft." My dad just shrugged. "Cora's fine. She always is." I learned early that being strong meant being invisible. I just didn't know yet how expensive that invisibility would become. I was 18, 3 months from high school graduation, when everything changed. I'd been accepted to the state university with a partial scholarship, enough to cover tuition, but not room and board or books. I needed the college fund my grandparents had set up. I'd known about it my whole life. "Your grandpa and grandma want to make sure both you girls can go to college," my dad had always said. I sat down at the kitchen table with my parents, acceptance letter in hand, ready to talk logistics. My mom and dad exchanged a look, the kind of look that makes your stomach drop before anyone speaks. "We need to talk about the fund," my mom started, not meeting my eyes. "Okay," I said slowly. "Madison's going to need more support," my dad said. "Her grades aren't as strong as yours. She'll need the full amount to have the same opportunities." The words didn't make sense at first. "Wait, the full amount? But Grandma set it up for both of us." "It's still family money," my mom said, her tone sharp. "We're making the best decision for the family as a whole." "But it's my money too. Grandpa wanted—" "Your grandfather would want us to do what's right," my dad interrupted. "You got the scholarship. You're resourceful. Madison needs this more than you do." I stared at them. "So I get nothing?" You'll figure it out, my mom said, already standing up to signal the conversation was over. You always do. That sentence, those 5 words, they echoed in my head all night. I didn't argue. I couldn't find the words. I just walked to my room, closed the door, and Googled military education benefits. 3 months later, I was at basic training. Madison was posting Instagram photos from her private university orientation, captioned, "So blessed to have parents who believe in me." Nobody mentioned that belief cost $400,000. While Madison was picking out dorm decorations, I was learning to disassemble an M16 in under a minute. The contrast wasn't lost on me. Every time I checked social media, which wasn't often, given our limited phone access during training, I saw snapshots of the life I'd been denied. Madison at sorority rush. Madison studying abroad in Barcelona. Madison at formal dinners with her new college friends. My parents' Facebook became a shrine to her achievements. So proud of our college girl accompanied every post. Photos of her at football games, at the library, holding up exam papers with good grades. I sent them updates too. A photo of me completing an obstacle course. A message about making it through the first month of training. I got back short responses, sometimes days later. Good job. Stay safe. Once, no response at all. My Aunt Helen was different. She texted regularly, asked real questions, remembered details about my unit. Your grandmother asks about you constantly, she wrote once. She seems worried, more than usual. That struck me as odd. Grandma had been quiet since I'd joined the military. I'd assumed she was disappointed in my choice, or maybe she just didn't understand it. I called her once from base, in one of my rare moments of free time. Grandma, it's Kora. Just wanted to check in. There was a long pause. Are you all right, sweetheart? Really all right? I'm fine. It's hard, but I'm managing. Another pause. Your grandfather would be proud of your strength. But Kora, strength shouldn't mean struggle. Do you understand what I'm saying? I didn't, not really. I think so? Good. Remember that. Her voice had an edge I didn't recognize. And remember that some things aren't what they seem, including family decisions. The call ended with me more confused than before. While I was trying to decode that cryptic message, Madison was picking her spring break destination. 6 years later, I came home. My discharge papers were signed, my duffel bag was packed, and I had exactly 4 months of savings to figure out civilian life. I'd used my military benefits to finish my bachelor's degree online, state school, like I'd originally planned, but without the college experience Madison had enjoyed. The first family dinner back was supposed to be a homecoming. It felt more like a stranger crashing someone else's reunion. Madison's applying to MBA programs, my mom announced before we'd even finished the appetizers. She's looking at the top schools. Harvard, Stanford, Wharton. That's great, I said, trying to sound enthusiastic. Tell them about the interview you had, my dad prompted Madison. For the next 30 minutes, I listened to a detailed breakdown of Madison's professional aspirations, her GMAT score, her recommenders. When there was finally a lull, I mentioned that I'd been looking into project management jobs in the logistics sector. My dad nodded vaguely. That's nice. The military must have been quite an experience, my mom said, in a tone that suggested she wanted to close that chapter of conversation quickly. At least you got that out of your system. Now you can settle down. Madison looked me up and down. You look so different. Military really changed you. 6 years tends to do that, I said quietly. Nobody asked about deployment. Nobody asked about the challenges of transitioning back to civilian life. Nobody asked if I was okay. Over dessert, I noticed the new furniture in the living room. Later, walking to my old bedroom, I saw the renovated bathroom. In the driveway sat a new car, Madison's graduation gift from last spring. They'd had money for all of that, but not for a single care package in 6 years. That night, lying in my childhood bed, I realized I'd been gone for 6 years, and nobody had actually missed me. I found the Veterans Support Group 3 weeks after coming home, mostly because I didn't know where else to go. That's where I met Jake Morrison. He was 30, had served 8 years, and had the same slightly lost look I saw in the mirror every morning. "First meeting?" he asked, sitting down next to me with coffee. "That obvious? You're sitting on the edge of your chair like you might need to escape." "I did the same thing my first time." He smiled. "It gets easier. Or at least different." We started talking after meetings. Then we started getting coffee between meetings. Jake understood things I didn't have to explain. The weird guilt of being home, the disconnect from people who'd never served, the way civilian concerns felt both trivial and impossibly complex. One evening, 6 weeks after we'd met, he asked why I'd joined the military. I'd never told anyone the full story. But with Jake, it spilled out. The college fund, my parents' casual dismissal, the 6 years watching my sister live the life that should have been mine, at least partially. Jake listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. "Can I ask you something?" he finally said. "Sure." "Did your grandmother actually agree to give all the money to your sister?" I blinked. "My parents said it was a family decision." "That's not what I asked." The question hung in the air. I realized I'd never actually confirmed it with my grandmother. I'd just accepted my parents' version of events. "People who say you're so strong a lot," Jake continued, "they're usually using it as an excuse to not support you. Strength doesn't mean you don't deserve help. It just means you've learned to survive without it." Nobody had ever said that to me before. I drove home that night thinking about my grandmother's cryptic phone call years ago. Some things aren't what they seem. Maybe it was time to ask some questions. The text came to the family group chat on a Tuesday morning. "Madison. Big news! I got accepted to Northwestern's MBA program." My mom responded instantly. "So proud. We'll call you tonight to celebrate." My dad. "That's our girl. Of course we'll help with tuition." I stared at my phone. Of course they'd help. They always helped Madison. Me. "Congrats, Madison. That's a big achievement." I meant it. It was a good program. She'd worked hard for the acceptance. But then the follow-up messages came. My mom. "We'll need to discuss the financial details. The program is $120K for 2 years, but it's such an investment in Madison's future." My dad. "Exactly. MBA opens doors. It's worth every penny." Something snapped. Me. "Where's that money coming from? I'm still paying off my loans." The typing bubbles appeared and disappeared several times before my dad responded. My dad. "Your military benefits covered your degree. Madison's education requires different support. This is an investment." Me. "My benefits covered a state school. Madison got private university and now MBA. Both from what should have been our fund." My mom. "Here we go again. When will you stop being bitter? We did what we thought was best." Madison. "Seriously, Kora? You're ruining my moment. This is exactly why mom and dad focus on me. I don't make everything about drama." I read that message 3 times, feeling something cold settle in my chest. Me. "Enjoy your program, Madison." I didn't type the rest of what I was thinking. Instead, I scrolled through my contacts and found the number I'd been avoiding for months. Aunt Helen answered on the second ring. "I need Grandma Eleanor's number," I said, "and I need to know exactly how that college fund was set up." There was a long pause. "It's about time," Aunt Helen said. "I'll text you both right now." I called my grandmother that evening, hands shaking slightly as I dialed. She answered on the first ring. "Kora, I wondered when you'd call." "Grandma, I need to ask you something about the college fund." "I've been waiting for this conversation for 10 years. Her voice was steady, almost relieved. "Go ahead, sweetheart." "Mom and Dad said the fund was family money, that you agreed to give it all to Madison because she needed it more." Silence stretched between us. "They told you I agreed?" Her voice had changed. gone flat and hard. Yes, they said it was a family decision. That's a lie. The words were sharp, precise. Your grandfather and I established that trust with explicit instructions. 200,000 for each grandchild, to be distributed at age 18 for educational purposes, non-negotiable. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. But they said, I know what they said, and I didn't interfere because I hoped they'd do the right thing eventually. That they'd see what they were doing to you and correct it. She paused. I was wrong to wait. I should have acted years ago. Grandma, are you saying they just took my money? I'm saying your father, as trustee, violated the terms of the trust, and I've already contacted David Brennan, your grandfather's attorney. He's been investigating. My mind was racing. Investigating what? Everything. Bank records, withdrawal patterns, documentation. Kora, what your parents did wasn't just unfair parenting, it was misappropriation of trust funds. It's illegal. I sat down hard on my couch. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because you needed to be ready to stand up for yourself. You needed to reach the point where you'd question what they told you. Her voice softened. Are you ready now? I thought about Jake's words, about Madison's text, about 6 years of being invisible. Yes, I said. I'm ready. David Brennan's email arrived at 11 p.m. that same night. The subject line read, Thomas Family Trust, Confidential Documents. I opened it with my laptop balanced on my knees, Jake sitting beside me for moral support. The first attachment was the original trust document, dated 2 years before I was born. The language was clear, almost painfully so. Upon each grandchild reaching the age of 18, the sum of $200,000 shall be distributed for educational purposes, including but not limited to tuition, housing, books, and related expenses. Distribution shall be equal between beneficiaries. Equal. The word was underlined in David's notes. The second attachment showed the withdrawal history. Starting the month I turned 18, money had been transferred out of the trust, all of it to accounts in Madison's name or directly to her university. $400,000, 6 years of transfers, not a single penny to me. The third attachment made my stomach drop. It was an amendment to the trust, dated 3 months after I'd turned 18, supposedly signed by my grandmother. It authorized flexible distribution at trustees' discretion. David's note beneath it read, Signature analysis completed. This is a forgery. Your grandmother's actual signature from the same time period is attached for comparison. Notice the different pressure patterns and loop formations. I zoomed in on the signatures. Even to my untrained eye, the differences were obvious. Your father forged your grandmother's signature, Jake said quietly, reading over my shoulder. That's fraud, I whispered. The final email paragraph from David laid it out in stark legal terms. Embezzlement, breach of fiduciary duty, forgery, multiple felonies. My phone buzzed, a text from David. The question isn't whether you have a case, it's whether you want to pursue it. This is your decision, Kora. But know that your grandmother and I are prepared to move forward. I looked at Jake. He squeezed my hand. They didn't just choose Madison over you, he said. They committed crimes to do it. I drove to my parents' house the next morning, the documents printed and folded in my bag. My dad answered the door in his weekend clothes, coffee mug in hand. His smile faded when he saw my expression. Kora, what's wrong? I walked past him into the kitchen and set the papers on the counter. Explain this. He picked up the first page. His face went pale. Where did you get these? Grandma's attorney. You forged her signature. You stole my share. It's not that simple. Yes, it is. 200,000 for me. 200,000 for Madison. You took it all. My mom appeared in the doorway. What's going on? I didn't take my eyes off my dad. He committed fraud against his own daughter. Your father did what he had to, my mom snapped. Madison wouldn't have made it without full support. Then you should have asked Grandma to change the trust legally, not steal. We'll pay you back, my dad said quickly. Just don't make this public. Think about Madison's career. Something in me turned cold. I thought about my career for 6 years in uniform. I thought about it every time I worked a night shift to pay loans that shouldn't have existed. Now you think about consequences. I picked up the documents and walked toward the door. Kora, please, my dad called after me. She's graduating from her MBA next month. Don't ruin her party. I stopped in the doorway, looked back at him. I'm not ruining anything. The truth will do that all by itself. His face crumpled. She's your sister. And I'm your daughter. You just never acted like it. I left before he could respond, his coffee mug still frozen halfway to his mouth. I need to pause here for a second because this moment was huge for me. For years, I thought I was wrong for feeling hurt. But seeing those documents, knowing they didn't just overlook me, they actively stole from me, changed everything. If this story resonates with you, hit that like button. And I want to know, have you ever discovered a family secret that changed how you saw everything? Drop your story in the comments. Sometimes just knowing we're not alone makes all the difference. Okay, back to what happened at Madison's MBA graduation party. 3 weeks before Madison's graduation party, my parents started texting again. My mom, please come to Madison's party. Let's put this behind us. We're family. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I called my grandmother. They want me at the party, I told her. Of course they do. They want to control the narrative. Will you go? I'd been thinking about this. Yes, but not to forgive, to witness. There was a pause, then something that sounded like satisfaction in her voice. Good, I'll be there too. With David. Grandma, what are you planning? Nothing you need to worry about. Just be present. Let the truth speak when it's ready. Jake was less cryptic when I told him my plan. Are you sure you want to do this? Public confrontation is intense. I'm not confronting anyone, I said. I'm just showing up. Whatever happens, happens. You're showing up to your sister's party after discovering your parents committed fraud. Something's going to happen. He wasn't wrong. But I had no intention of making a scene myself. I'd learned something important in the military. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stand at attention and let other people's actions speak for themselves. I need to see this through, I said. Jake nodded slowly. Then I'm your ride home. Whatever happens, you're not alone. The week before the party, my grandmother called again. David finished his investigation, she said. There's more than we initially thought. What do you mean? We'll discuss it at the party. Some conversations need the right audience. Her voice had an edge I'd never heard before. Not anger exactly, but something steel-reinforced and unmovable. My grandmother had always been gentle. I was learning she could be gentle and absolutely ruthless at the same time. The Riverside Country Club was exactly the kind of venue my parents would choose. Elegant, expensive, impressive. I arrived with Jake to find the ballroom already filled with guests. At least 150 people, maybe more. Madison's MBA cohort in business casual. Professors from Northwestern. Extended family I hadn't seen in years. Family friends. My parents' colleagues. Banners hung from the ceiling. Congratulations, Madison! A table displayed photos of her college journey, sorority events, study abroad, graduation. Not a single photo of me in military uniform. My mom spotted me immediately and hurried over, her smile tight. You came. Thank you. Please, just smile and be happy for your sister today. I'm here, I said. That was all I'd promised. Madison appeared in a navy dress, looking polished and professional. She saw me, and her expression flickered with something. Anxiety, maybe, or irritation. Glad you could make it, she said. Try not to make it awkward, okay? Before I could respond, relatives descended. Aunts and uncles I hadn't seen since before I deployed. Everyone with the same questions. What have you been up to? How was the military? What's next for you? I gave short, polite answers. Nobody seemed to expect more. My dad hovered near the bar, watching me with nervous eyes. Every few minutes, he'd glance toward the door like he was expecting someone. Then my grandmother arrived. She wore a burgundy dress, pearl necklace, and an expression of absolute calm. Beside her was a well-dressed man in his 60s carrying a leather briefcase. "That's David Brennan," I told Jake quietly. My Aunt Helen appeared at my elbow. "Your grandma looks like she's on a mission." "She usually is," I said. My grandmother caught my eye across the room and gave me a small, deliberate nod. Whatever was about to happen had already been set in motion. My dad tapped a microphone at the front of the room. "Can I have everyone's attention?" The conversations quieted. Guests turned toward him, drinks in hand, polite smiles ready. "I want to take a moment to talk about what this day means," he began, his voice warm and proud. "Patricia and I have sacrificed everything for this moment." My hands clenched under the table. We made tough choices as parents. We prioritized wisely. We invested in Madison's future with everything we had. The room murmured approvingly. Several people glanced at Madison, who was dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. "Not every parent would go this far," my dad continued. "But we believed in Madison's potential from the beginning. We saw something special, and we did whatever it took to nurture it." He paused for effect, his voice thickening with emotion. "And Madison, you proved us right. You took every opportunity we gave you and you maximized it. This MBA is just the beginning of what we know will be an incredible career." Applause rippled through the room. Madison stood hugging my parents. My mom was crying. Several of Madison's professors were nodding approvingly. My dad raised his glass. "Some people told us we were giving Madison too much support. I say we gave her exactly what she needed to succeed, and now we get to watch her soar." More applause. A few people at nearby tables raised their glasses. "So let's toast to Madison," my dad said, his voice ringing with pride. "To her achievements, her future, and to parents who believed in investing in excellence." "Here, here," someone called out. I sat perfectly still, watching my father frame theft as wisdom and fraud as sacrifice. That's when my grandmother stood up. The room went quiet again, but this time the silence felt different. "Before we toast," my grandmother said, her voice clear and calm, "I'd like to say something." My dad's smile froze. "Mom, this isn't the time." "Oh, I think it is, Richard. You just gave a lovely speech about sacrifices and investments." She walked slowly toward the front of the room, David Brennan following with his briefcase. "Let's talk about what was actually sacrificed." Conversation stopped. People turned in their seats, confused but attentive. Madison's eyes went wide. "Mom, please sit down," my mother hissed from her seat. My grandmother ignored her. "David, would you distribute those documents?" David opened his briefcase and began handing folders to key tables. The professors, the extended family, my parents' friends. People opened them slowly, curiosity turning to concentration as they read. "Grandma, what is this?" Madison asked, her voice thin. My grandmother looked at her, and for a moment her expression softened. "The truth about your education fund, sweetheart." She turned back to the room, commanding attention with nothing but her presence and that absolute calm in her voice. "That fund Richard just mentioned? My late husband and I created it 28 years ago, $400,000, $200,000 for Kora, $200,000 for Madison." She held up a document. "Equal distribution, non-negotiable. Those were the terms." The room was absolutely silent now. You could hear the rustle of papers as people flipped through the folders. My grandmother pointed at me. I hadn't moved, hadn't changed expression. "Kora got $0. She joined the military to afford college with no help from the fund that was legally hers." Madison's face went white. "Dad said it was family money and you agreed to—" "I never agreed," My grandmother's voice cut through like a blade. Your father forged my signature. Gasps rippled through the crowd. David Brennan stepped forward, his attorney's voice trained to carry. The documents you're holding show 6 years of withdrawals from the Thomas Family Trust. All $400,000 went to Madison's education. That's embezzlement. Mom, please, we can discuss this privately, my dad started. You had 10 years to discuss it privately, my grandmother said. You chose to double down instead, so now I'm pressing charges. The words hung in the air like a detonation. Madison stood up, her chair scraping loudly. No, this can't be right. Dad? My dad's mouth opened and closed. No words came out. One of Madison's professors, an older woman with gray hair, approached her. Madison, is this true? Your educational funding came from misappropriated trust funds? I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Madison's voice cracked. The professor's face was grave. This is extremely serious. The school's ethics board will need to be notified. Another professor was reading the documents with increasing alarm. These bank statements show explicit trust violations. This isn't a family dispute. This is fraud. My mom shot to her feet. This is ridiculous. You're all overreacting. But people were looking at my parents differently now. Whispers spread through the room like wildfire. Did you hear that? He forged his own mother's signature? $400,000. That poor girl served in the military while... Madison turned to me, mascara starting to run. Kora, you did this. You ruined my day. I met her eyes, my voice steady and quiet. I didn't do anything. The truth did. But there's more, my grandmother said, and the room went silent again. David pulled out another document. During our investigation, we found additional irregularities. My dad made a sound like he'd been punched. David continued, his voice clinical. Richard's mother, Eleanor's late husband's first wife, also established an educational trust, $50,000 for each grandchild. He paused, letting that sink in. That money also went entirely to Madison. Different account, same pattern of misappropriation. My Aunt Helen stood up. Richard, you stole from 2 separate trusts? My dad's face crumpled. Tears started rolling down his cheeks. I just wanted her to have every advantage. I was going to pay Kora back eventually. You had 10 years, my grandmother said coldly. You bought a new car instead. Madison sank into her chair like her legs couldn't hold her anymore. $250,000, she whispered. My entire education was... David wasn't finished. There's also evidence that some trust withdrawals were used to cover personal debts unrelated to Madison's education, credit card payments, home renovations. The implication hit the room like a physical wave. My parents hadn't just stolen from me for Madison, they'd stolen for themselves. Madison looked up at my dad, betrayal written across her face. You told me this was my money, that I earned it with my grades and hard work. You did work hard, he said desperately. You did earn it. With stolen money, her voice rose. Everything I achieved, everyone here thinks I'm a fraud now. You're not, I said quietly. Everyone turned to look at me. You completed the work. You earned the degree. You just didn't know where the funding came from. But one of Madison's MBA cohort members was already standing up, shaking his head. Another followed. The consulting firm supervisor who'd been sitting at their table stood and gestured for Madison to follow her. Madison, we need to talk. Privately. Now. Madison's perfect day was disintegrating in real time. As Madison left with her supervisor, my grandmother sat down in a chair at the front of the room. She looked tired suddenly, older than her 82 years. I need everyone to understand something, she said. I didn't want to do this publicly. I gave Richard multiple chances to make this right. She looked directly at my dad. 3 years ago, I asked him point blank if Kora had received her share. He lied to my face, said she'd chosen to use military benefits instead and I shouldn't worry. My dad was openly sobbing now, his shoulders shaking. Last year, when Madison applied to MBA programs, I asked again. He assured me both girls had been treated fairly. Her voice hardened. That's when I hired David to investigate. David pulled out one more document. Mrs. Thomas asked me to look at all financial records related to the trusts. What I found goes beyond simple embezzlement. He held up bank statements. These show that approximately $30,000 from the trusts was used for non-educational purposes, vacation deposits, car payments, credit card debt. My Aunt Helen's voice cut through the shocked murmurs. Richard, you didn't just steal from your daughters. You stole from your own mother's legacy to your father. My grandmother's eyes welled up for the first time. My husband worked himself to death building a business so these girls would have opportunities. He made me promise that both granddaughters would get equal support. She looked at my dad, and I saw something that wasn't just anger, it was grief. You dishonored his memory, you violated his final wishes, and you did it while standing at his funeral telling me you'd take care of everything. That's when my dad completely broke down, not from shame at being caught, from the weight of what he'd actually done, the scope of the betrayal, the years of lies, the people he'd hurt. "I'm sorry," he gasped between sobs. "I'm so sorry. I thought I was helping. I thought—" But nobody wanted to hear what he thought anymore. The country club manager appeared at my mother's elbow. "Mrs. Thomas," the country club manager said quietly but firmly, "I need you to settle the bill now. We can't extend credit under these circumstances." My mother's face went red, then white. She fumbled for her purse, hands shaking as she pulled out a credit card. Around the room, social consequences were already rippling outward. My uncle, my dad's brother, stood up and walked to where my dad sat crying. "Richard, remember 2 years ago when I lent you $15,000 for that emergency? Was that a lie too?" My dad couldn't answer. Extended family members were gathering bags, making quiet excuses to leave. Nobody wanted to be associated with this anymore. One of my parents' neighbors, a woman who'd been at countless family barbecues, stopped by their table. "Patricia, I think it's best if you don't come to book club anymore." The message was clear. You're not welcome in this community. Madison returned from her conversation with the supervisor, her face blotchy and tear-stained. She walked straight past our parents without looking at them and came to where I sat with Jake. "My offer's been rescinded," she said, her voice hollow. "Ethical concerns regarding funding sources." I didn't know what to say. Jake squeezed my hand under the table. "They said I can reapply in a year if the situation is resolved," Madison continued. "But everyone knows now. My entire cohort, my professors, the firms I interviewed with." Some of Madison's friends approached cautiously. "Maddie, we had no idea. That's terrible what they did to your sister." Madison nodded numbly. But I could see the reality settling in. Her professional reputation had been damaged not by anything she did, but by the foundation her success was built on. My Aunt Helen came and sat beside me. "I'm so sorry, Kora. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't realize the extent." "It's not your fault," I said. "I should have pushed harder, should have asked more questions." Across the room, my grandmother sat with David, both of them looking grimly satisfied but not happy. This wasn't victory. It was necessary devastation. An hour later, after most guests had left, a small group gathered in a side room. My grandmother, David, Jake, and me. My parents had been asked to leave by the country club staff. David laid out papers on the table with practiced efficiency. "Here's where things stand legally," he said. "Criminal side: embezzlement, forgery, and fraud. I've filed a report with the district attorney. They'll decide whether to prosecute." I felt my stomach tighten. "Civil side: Kora, you can sue for full restitution plus damages. Given the documented evidence, you'd win." "What happens to my parents?" I asked. "For first-time offenders, likely probation and a restitution order. If the DA pushes hard, or if they don't cooperate, possible jail time, 6 months to 2 years." My grandmother leaned forward. And Madison's degree? The university may investigate the funding sources, but the degree itself remains valid. She completed the academic work. However, her reputation is damaged. That's a consequence, not a legal penalty. Jake asked the question I was thinking. What about the money used for personal expenses? The 30,000? That complicates things, makes the charges more serious, shows intent beyond just helping one child. I stared at the documents. This was real. This was happening. Kora, David said gently, I need to be clear. This is about making you whole, not revenge. You're entitled to $250,000 plus interest. That's what the law says. I don't want Madison punished, I said. She didn't know. I want what was stolen from me, and I want them to understand they can't do this. My grandmother nodded. That's exactly the right approach. David pulled out a settlement proposal. They'll need a payment plan. The question is how aggressive you want to be. I looked at the numbers, thinking about 6 years of struggle that should never have happened. My parents were waiting in the parking lot when we emerged from the country club. My dad's eyes were red and swollen. My mom looked furious. She started in immediately. You've destroyed this family. Are you happy now? I didn't destroy anything, I said evenly. You did. 10 years ago. My dad stepped forward. What do you want from us? I want my $250,000 with interest, and I want you to understand what you did. We don't have that kind of money, my mom said. Then you'll need a payment plan. David will arrange it. My dad's voice broke. We're still your parents. I looked at him for a long moment. All the years of feeling invisible, all the casual dismissals, all the times I'd been told I was too strong to need help. And I'm still your daughter, I said quietly. The one you stole from. The one you dismissed, the one you forgot about every time it was convenient. I took a breath, steadying myself. I loved you. I trusted you. And you chose to hurt me to help Madison. That's not parenting. That's betrayal. Kora, please. I need space. Don't contact me. When you're ready to make real amends, not just sorry you got caught, we can talk. But not before. My mom's face twisted. After everything we've done for you. You did nothing for me, I said. That's the whole point. Jake opened the car door for me. I got in without looking back. My dad called after us. We love you. I didn't respond. Love wasn't just words, it was actions. And their actions had spoken clearly for a decade. As we pulled away, I saw my grandmother walking toward them. Whatever she had to say, they'd have to hear it without me there. I'd said everything I needed to say. This moment right here, walking away from them, was the hardest and most necessary thing I've ever done. If you've ever had to set boundaries with family, you know how much it hurts. But you also know it's sometimes the only way to protect yourself. Drop A in the comments if you understand that painful necessity. And if you're finding value in this story, please subscribe. There's more I need to share about what happened after. 2 weeks after the party, my Aunt Helen forwarded me an email thread she'd been copied on. Madison's consulting firm offer had been formally rescinded. The email was corporate polite but clear. While Ms. Thomas was not personally responsible for the misappropriation of funds, the circumstances create reputational risk we cannot accept at this time. I sat staring at the screen, feeling something complicated twist in my chest. Jake found me on the couch, laptop open, expression distant. What's wrong? Madison's firm rescinded their offer, I said. She's applying to other places, but everyone's saying no. He sat beside me. How do you feel about that? I thought about it. Sad. She's still my sister. She worked hard for that MBA. You're allowed to feel multiple things at once, Jake said quietly. I know, I don't want her to suffer. I wanted accountability, not destruction. Those aren't always separable. Actions have consequences. She benefited from fraud, even unknowingly. I know. I closed the laptop. I keep thinking about something my grandmother said. about how letting truth speak isn't the same as seeking revenge. It's not, Jake confirmed. You didn't call those firms. You didn't tell them to reject her. That's them making their own ethical decisions. He was right, but it still hurt to watch. Madison hadn't reached out since the party. Neither had my parents, respecting the boundary I'd set, or maybe they just didn't know what to say. My phone buzzed, a text from my grandmother. David's meeting with their attorney tomorrow. They're ready to negotiate settlement. Thought you should know. So it was moving forward. The legal machinery was turning. I'd started this by asking questions. Now I had to see it through to the end, even when the endings weren't clean or satisfying, even when they hurt everyone involved, including me. 3 months later, I stood in a courthouse conference room while David reviewed the settlement documents. My dad had pleaded guilty to reduced charges, embezzlement, and breach of fiduciary duty. In exchange for cooperation and agreeing to full restitution, the DA had dropped the forgery charges and recommended probation instead of jail time. The terms were stark on paper. $250,000 plus accumulated interest. Approximately $280,000 total. Payment plan, 10 years at $2,800 per month. 2 years of probation. Mandatory family financial counseling. Permanent removal as trustee from any future family trusts. David pointed to the last clause. This means he can never hold a position of financial trust in the family again. I signed my name at the bottom. My dad had to refinance their house to make the down payment, liquidate part of his retirement account. My mom, who'd been working part-time as a real estate agent, had to find full-time work. The first payment arrived in my account 3 weeks later, $2,800. I transferred it immediately to an investment account. I didn't touch it for living expenses, didn't use it to celebrate. This money represented stolen time, stolen opportunities, stolen peace of mind. Jake watched me set up the automatic monthly deposits. What are you going to do with it? Rebuild the future they stole, I said. Pay off my student loans, eventually buy a place, maybe start a veterans mentorship program. You're not going to treat yourself? At all? I thought about that. Maybe, once it feels like mine instead of just returned property. David called that afternoon. The judge accepted the plea. Your father will start probation next month. He'll have a criminal record for the rest of his life. How did he seem? I asked. Broken, David said honestly. But maybe that's necessary before he can rebuild into something better. I hoped so. I didn't want my father destroyed. I just wanted him to understand. The money couldn't fix what had happened. But at least now, the scales were closer to balanced. 6 months after the party, Madison texted me. Can we talk? I understand if you say no. I showed the message to Jake. What do you think? What do you want to do? I'm not sure yet. I waited 2 days before responding. Coffee, public place, Saturday at 2. She arrived at the cafe early, already sitting at a corner table when I walked in. She looked different, hair pulled back simply, minimal makeup, wearing jeans instead of the designer clothes she used to favor. Thanks for meeting me, she said as I sat down. I'm listening. She took a breath. I'm not here to make excuses. I need to say I'm sorry. I waited. I got a job, she continued. Smaller consulting firm. Not the prestigious one, but it's honest work. She twisted her coffee cup. I've been in therapy. I'm starting to understand how much I took for granted. Go on. I knew Mom and Dad favored me. I knew they treated you differently. And I told myself it was because I needed more help, because you were naturally stronger. She met my eyes. I was wrong. That was me justifying taking what wasn't fully mine. You didn't know about the fraud, I said. No. But I didn't ask questions either. I didn't want to know if something was wrong because then I'd have to face it. That felt honest. I can't change what happened, Madison continued, but I want you to know I'm paying you back too. She slid a piece of paper across the table. A payment plan, $500 per month from her salary. Court didn't order this, she said. But it's right. Half that money should have been yours, so I'm giving you half of what I got. I looked at the paper, then at my sister. She looked older, worn down by consequences, but maybe more real than I'd ever seen her. I'm not asking you to forgive me, she said quietly. I'm asking for a chance to be better. Eventually. I folded the paper carefully. I appreciate this, but things won't go back to how they were. I know. The first Thanksgiving after everything happened, I spent at Jake's family home. His mother welcomed me like I'd always belonged there, and his father made room at their crowded table without asking questions. It was warm and loud, and nobody had decades of resentment brewing under the surface. My phone buzzed during dessert. A text from my mom. "You're really not coming? It's Thanksgiving." I typed back. I said I needed space. I meant it. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then reappeared. How long is this going to go on? I set my phone down, frustrated. Jake's mom caught my expression. Family trouble? She asked gently. They want things back to normal, but they haven't actually changed. She patted my hand. Normal for them meant hurting you. You're allowed to want something different. That evening, my dad sent a separate email. Unlike my mom's texts, this one was different. Kora, I know I have no right to ask for your time or attention. I'm writing because my therapist says I need to be specific about what I'm apologizing for, not just say sorry and expect forgiveness. I stole from you. I forged documents. I lied to your face and to my own mother. I prioritized one daughter over another and told myself it was justified. I let you believe you weren't worth supporting. Every one of these things was wrong. I caused you real harm, financial, emotional, and relational. I can't undo it. I can only work to become someone different, someone you might eventually trust again, even if you never want a close relationship. I understand if you need years of distance. You deserve that boundary. I just wanted you to know. I see what I did now. All of it. I read it 3 times. Thank you for this, I wrote back. It's a start, but rebuilding trust takes time. I went back to Jake's family, to the warmth and laughter. Maybe someday I could have both, but not yet. With the restitution payments coming in steadily, I made decisions about my future for the first time without financial desperation driving them. First, I paid off all my student loans, $23,000 gone in one payment. The relief was physical, like weight lifting off my shoulders. Second, I put a down payment on a small condo. Nothing fancy, but mine. A place where nobody could take anything from me because I'd earned every square foot. Third, and this one surprised even me, I started planning something bigger. I want to create a mentorship program, I told Jake one evening, for veterans transitioning to civilian careers. Help them navigate the things I had to figure out alone. That's a big undertaking. I know. But I keep thinking about how the money was supposed to be for education, for opportunity. I pulled up the nonprofit paperwork I'd been researching. What if I made sure it actually served that purpose, for people who need it? 3 months later, I filed the paperwork for the Thomas Education Initiative named after my grandfather. The first meeting had 12 veterans. We talked about resume building, networking, dealing with the disconnect between military and civilian culture. One woman started crying when we discussed feeling invisible after service. That's exactly how I felt, she said. Like I'd done something important and nobody cared. I know, I said. I've been there. Jake watched from the back of the room. Afterward, he hugged me. You turned theft into legacy, he said. That money was always meant for education, I replied. Now it's helping more than just me. My grandmother came to the second meeting, sitting quietly in the corner. When it ended, she squeezed my hand. Your grandfather would be so proud. I learned from both of you, I said, how to stand up for what's right. You learned it yourself, she corrected gently. We just reminded you. 18 months after my grandmother stood up at that MBA party, I can finally see the whole picture clearly. I wasted years being strong when what I actually needed was to be honest about being hurt. I thought keeping peace meant staying silent. It doesn't. It just means letting injustice continue while calling it love. The hardest lesson has been this: people who love you can still hurt you deeply. Maybe especially the people who love you because you trust them not to. And that's when boundaries matter most. Not to punish, but to protect yourself while healing happens. I didn't ruin Madison's party. The truth did. I just stopped hiding it. My relationship with my dad is slowly improving. We have dinner once a month, clear boundaries in place. He's doing the work, real work, not just apologizing to make me comfortable. We talk about small things, rebuild trust in tiny increments. My mom is different. She's still angry that I made this public. She hasn't fully accepted responsibility. So our relationship remains strained, and I'm okay with that. I can't force her to change. Madison and I talk every few weeks now. She's engaged to someone from her firm, building a life that's genuinely hers. We're not close like some sisters, but we're honest. Sometimes that's better. My grandmother is my rock. She taught me that dignity doesn't mean accepting mistreatment, it means refusing to accept it with grace. I don't regret pressing charges. I regret that it was necessary. But if the choice is between family peace and self-respect, I choose respect. Every time, because I learned something crucial. You can't have real peace without respect anyway. You just have people pretending everything's fine while wounds fester underneath. The Thomas Education Initiative is expanding. We're helping 50 veterans this year. The money that was stolen is now creating opportunities for people who, like me, served their country and needed support coming home. Some people will call you bitter for not accepting crumbs from the table. Let them. You know the full meal you deserved. Thank you for staying with me through this story. It took courage to share, but if it helps even one person understand they don't have to accept mistreatment, even from family, then it was worth it. Please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Check the description for resources on family boundaries and financial elder abuse. What's your take? Was I wrong to press charges? Too harsh? Let me know in the comments. And if you have your own story of standing up to family injustice, I'd love to hear it. Remember, you're allowed to protect yourself, even from people you love.
If you stayed until the end of the story, then you exactly know what Calm Deep Stories is all about. We bring you emotional stories of family betrayal, hidden money, toxic relatives, shocking revenge, and the kind of stories that you make you pause and say, I didn't expect that. These are not the stories about drama. They are stories about people finding their voice after being ignored, people standing up after being humiliated, people proving that being underestimated can sometimes be the beginning of the most satisfying ending. So make sure you subscribe to Calm Deep Stories and hit the bell because every new story being another secret, another betrayal, and another moment where karma finally knocks on the door. And now, look at the video on your screen. The next story is waiting for you.